If you like onions, if you eat onions, save your skins because those skins will turn into some very, very beautiful skeins that you can use for your next project. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Bethany. I'm the girl behind Well Love Knits, and today we're doing something very exciting. Last year during the pandemic, I was one of those people who was finding all kinds of random projects to do, like baking bread, gardening, and then also natural dyeing. Since I've had really good experience with natural dyeing in the past, I thought it would be a lot of fun to take you along on the process and just show you how I go about doing it. I'm not an expert by any means, and all of the knowledge that I have, my process is from a lot of different research I've done. I was like obsessed with it last year, looking into all the different things you can dye with and how the most natural way of doing it is. So I don't have to go out and spend a lot of money on like alum powder, all kinds of stuff like that, which you can, but that's not what I'm going to be doing today. My process is very, very simple. I have really, the only things that I spent money on were the onions that I ate and I saved over, wow. It's probably been a couple of months that I've been just like holding on to the onions as we've been like peeling them to cook and put them in different meals that we eat. I don't know how much skins, like I didn't even weigh it, I'm sorry. But I can guess, you know, we eat a lot of onions. So over, let's say a 2-3 month period of eating onions, it's a couple of bags worth, like a couple of kilos. So I purchased the onions and then also these undyed wool skeins, a truckload basically of this 100% natural undyed hand spun wool. If I can find it, I will leave the Etsy link in the description. It was a really good value, I think, for the amount that I got. I think I almost got like 9 or 10 skeins. And since it's undyed, that's exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to use it for my natural dye products. 100% wool, like I said, and very, very natural. You can smell the lanolin off of this, which I'm not somebody who works with and wears a lot of rustic style yarn. So for me, I found that the best purpose for this yarn for me will probably be a punch needle project. So I think that's what I'm gonna do with these skeins that I dye up. It's not too rough and my skin isn't that sensitive, but I kind of just prefer having something a little bit softer on my skin because I don't wear, most of the time I wear all of my sweaters next to my skin, so I prefer not to. On top of that, natural dyed skeins can vary, and every single time that I have done something, the color varies greatly from skein to skein, also because of what I have.
That's a good segue into what you will need for this project. Of course, we are going to need our dye stuff, so here are the skins I've been collecting over the past weeks for this project. I left mine in big flakes like this, but you can also break them into smaller pieces, which may or may not add to the pigment. Then you'll need some unsweetened soy milk in a large aluminum pot. Mine is around 5 liters, I think. It would be helpful to have a spoon that is also dedicated to natural dyeing. In addition, you'll need some eco detergent or dish soap to wash out your wool. This is especially important if you're using 100% natural wool like I am. Because of the lanolin in the fibers, it is very dingy. There's some natural oil that might make the wool not so receptive to the dye. So I cleaned it out just the same way that I would wash and block my knits. I fill up my bathtub with enough water to submerge the yarn and then added in a small amount of soap to soak for about 30 minutes or so, and then I rinsed it clean and hung it to dry on a rack outside.
The next thing that we need to do is coat our yarn in unsweetened soy milk. And I know what you're thinking, why soy milk? Well, it's actually a natural mordant. So like the mordant is the thing that helps like the natural dye stick to the yarn. So natural dye in general is just going to lighten over time, especially if you're going to wash it a lot because of a clothing item. So that's something to keep in mind. It's really important to use some kind of mordant to kind of protect the fiber and make sure that the color lasts longer, because you're putting in all this effort. Why not make sure that it at least sticks around for a little bit. I personally wanted to use soy milk because then that's a 100% natural process. I'm not really interested in sourcing and using a lot of the chemical mordants that are out there. I haven't honestly really researched them at all because I just like the idea of picking up soy milk. It's something that I get at the grocery store anyway, and then doing this process. And it's actually kind of fun, like how natural it is, even though it will not be as reliable of a mordant as probably some chemicals out there. It's just still like a really natural process, and I just think it's really cool.
For the mordanting process, I simply fill up my pot with a liter of soy milk. It's important that it's unsweetened soy milk. And then I add in some cold water so that when I put my yarn in, the yarn is completely submerged in the mixture, and I stir to make sure that everything is well incorporated. Then I leave it for about 8 to 10 hours in a cool place. So last week we had some pretty bad weather, which ironically not so good to film in, but actually really nice for this process in particular because the soy milk could spoil easily if it's in intense heat, which is why it's really important to put it in the shade and leave it for a little while, and then rinse out the excess liquid and hang it to dry.
So ideally you should wait a couple of days before dyeing so that the mordant can just like stick onto the yarn and really connect with the fibers. But I will tell you that I have gotten too impatient at times, and I have done it sooner than just a couple of days. So this is where we get to the fun part, where you're actually creating the dye. And that's when you need to get all of the amounts of dye stuff. So I took all of my onion skins and like all of them. I want to say that it was a full paper bag's worth. Put the dye stuff in the pot that you're going to be using. Again, I use the same one, so I clean it very thoroughly, and then I put the dye stuff in and submerge it with water, making sure that it's completely submerged and even breaking up some of the skins so that there's just more dye to extract. I bring it up to a simmer and then let it simmer for almost like 2 hours or so on low heat. So I find that the higher heat that you put it on, the less brilliant the color will be. So making sure that it's like hot but not bubbling. So you don't ever want it to come to a boil because then it might make more of a brownish, like darkish tone and not as pretty and as vibrant as it could be. So that's one tip that I will say is very important. And once you've extracted all of the color, I like to leave mine, this is a really long process. It's a couple of days. You really have to make sure that you have a lot of time for it and a lot of space on the stove for it too, because then I'll let it sit overnight and then use the strainer the next day. So then I'll take a strainer and make sure all of the dye stuff is out, because when we're getting ready to put our yarn in, we don't want onion skins to be in there. I mean, maybe you could do it and it would be like some kind of cool tie-dye effect, but you need to make sure that you strain all of the water so that all of the bits and bobs aren't in there, so then you'll have the most cohesive dye. I just use like a random strainer for this. I used to have a cheesecloth. I don't really know where that went, which is a shame because it would have been really handy. It makes sure that the liquid is completely flawless and smooth, but you know, what can you do? Once your liquid is all strained, you can finally put it in, which is great. But I think I left my dye overnight this time around because the aluminum pot actually is really important. It can help bring out a brighter color in your dyes. At least that's what I've read somewhere. I can't really cite who it was, although I will leave some really good resources down in the description. But if you use an aluminum pot, you're likely to get some really great colors from that.
Since I don't have a very large pot, I dyed these skeins one at a time, leaving each one in for about 24 hours. For the best results, you should wet your yarn first before adding it into the pot. I kind of forgot to do that for the first skein, but the second one I did. And then you just gently ease your yarn into the dye pot, making sure that it is fully submerged. being nice and gentle. You want the skein to also be floating freely within the pot so that, you know, the dye is very consistent. So if you need to, you can also add in some extra water. That won't necessarily affect the dye because there's still the same amount of dye particles within the pot. With most dyes, but this is certainly not the case for all, you should be able to see the color catch onto the wool almost immediately. So then I take the pot and set it on the stove and heat it on low heat. I put it on the lowest setting possible for at least an hour and then leave it in the pot for a full day. I've noticed personally that the longer that the wool stays in the pot, the better.
I'm so excited with how these skeins turned out. I think they look fantastic. So this is what the skein looked like before. The skein that I did in the first bath was like this, turned into a beautiful, like caramelly color. I had a feeling based off of my experience from the cotton dyes that I did last year that it was going to be brown. But this is a really like lovely caramel color, and I think it is just so beautiful. It's crazy to think that it was this color before. Always when I'm dyeing, I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, this is a cool color, I guess. But it always impresses me so much more when they're actually right next to the skein that it originally looked like. So just to see what it would have looked like at the very beginning and to see what it is with the finished product. I'm really excited to use this. This one was the full skein, so the first one that I did. But then, oh my gosh, this one I didn't really expect, because after I saw this, I was expecting maybe a lighter brown for the second skein, but the second skein, guys, look at that. Wow. It looks like I dyed it with avocados. Like, this is beautiful. And I'm actually kind of sad that I didn't use a full skein for it, because I really love this color. And I think also the two of them together will look so pretty. And then just all three of them next to each other. Wow, this is insane. Like, check this out. This is amazing. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like, every single time, the whole process, it might seem like something that's a little tedious, might take a long time, but honestly, if you're anything like me, like, this is so worth it. Just seeing, I don't know, it's just really cool. I never would have guessed that I would have gotten two very, very different colors from the separate baths. After I dyed this skein, I just immediately put this one in, and yeah. Although the only thing that I did differently, apart from them being two separate amounts, like smaller amounts, is that I had forgotten for this one, but for this one, I submerged it in water before putting it into the dye bath, and this one I forgot to do that. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I have read that, you know, sometimes other uses of the dye will produce different colors because certain pigments are being selected or being bound to the skein that you're first dyeing with, so, or the whatever it is that you're dyeing with. But wow, like, I love this. So what am I gonna do with these skeins? These skeins are actually going to be used for a punch needle project that I hope to do. I think since I have 3 skeins left and I don't really want to use them for any kind of sweater or anything like that, I think I'm going to do some more natural dyeing projects and then maybe do something like kind of patchwork, punch needle, canvas type thing. I have no idea, but I've really always wanted to dye with dandelions. I can't, either it's gonna be a green or like a pale yellow color, and I think that would be really beautiful. And then I think I've been collecting some more skins and pits for avocados as well. So I think that's what I'm gonna end up doing with these skeins. I'm definitely gonna be doing more natural dyeing, just in different colors, so then I'll have like a whole rainbow of colors to be able to use for some natural dyeing punch needle kits, similar to the ones from Hands of a Maker, the one that I love so much. But yeah, just seeing it all together, it's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing that plants can do that, and it's just really cool that all of it was super cheap, super natural, and just stuff out of the pantry as well. Like really just easy stuff that you can get your hands on, and you can have like a fun project like this. Sure, it takes a couple of days and some dedication and some space on the stove, but I'm sure if you're anything like me, it's well worth your while. So I really encourage you guys to get to do this. I think it would be really, really, really cool to give it a try. So what have we learned today? We have learned that if you eat onions, if you like onions at all, you need to save your onion skins. Make sure that you keep those because you can make some very, very beautiful colors for your next project. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more knitting and fiber related content like this. Let me know if you would be interested in following along on my next dyeing adventure, because I definitely want to do dandelions and avocados. So if you want to see that process, just let me know. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye. I love them. So nice. Not very soft, but they're just very, very nice.